The twin suns of Kepler 442b bled across the horizon, their radiation scorching the wastelands where no living thing should linger. Yet in the shadows of jagged crystal cliffs, a mother knelt, her body cracked and burning, her arms wrapped tightly around an infant that shimmered faintly against the dying light. The Thylorians had cast her out, declaring her child a curse, a defect unworthy of survival. Alone, weak, and choking on poisoned air, she waited for the end. But fate had other plans, for where her own people had abandoned her, another presence stirred in the dust. Heavy boots pressed into the barren soil, a flicker of light from a human visor breaking through the gloom. Against all reason, against every law written in his world and hers. He stopped when he saw her. In that moment, two choices collided. Obey the rules and walk away, or defy them, and save a mother and a child, destined to be forgotten. This is the story of when stars wept, and a human offered hope where none remained. The abandoned hope. The twin suns of Kepler 442b cast harsh shadows across the crystalline wasteland, their radiation turning the air itself into a shimmering death trap. Zara Vex crawled forward another few meters, her once brilliant purple crystal skin now dull and cracked from exposure. Each breath burned her lungs, and the bundle in her arms grew heavier with every step. Her infant daughter Lyra had stopped crying hours ago. That terrified Zara more than the approaching sandstorm on the horizon. The Thylorian exile tradition was ancient and absolute. When a child was born with defective crystal formations, both mother and offspring were cast into the wasteland to die. It preserved the genetic purity of their race, the elders claimed. It honored their crystal ancestors, they said. But as Zara looked down at her daughter's face, pale and still, she felt nothing but rage at the traditions that had sentenced them both to this slow death. Lyra's crystals were indeed different. Instead of the sharp geometric formations that marked healthy Thylorian children, hers were smooth and rounded, almost organic in their curves. The healers had declared her cursed, a genetic aberration that would weaken their entire bloodline. Zara's mate, Corin, had not even looked at the child before demanding the exile. The shame of producing such offspring would have destroyed his standing in the crystal courts. The mining facility in the distance seemed impossibly far away. Zara knew the humans who worked there followed strict contamination protocols. No unauthorized aliens were permitted within their compound, especially not exiled ones carrying genetic defects. Still, it represented the only shelter for kilometers in any direction. Even if they turned her away, perhaps she could find some scraps, some shelter, something to keep Lyra alive just a little longer. Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his brow as he checked the atmospheric readings on his portable scanner. The mining corporation had sent him out to survey potential expansion sites, but the radiation levels were spiking again. The twin suns were entering their monthly alignment phase, making external work dangerous even with full protective gear. He should head back to the facility soon. Something moved in his peripheral vision. Marcus turned, adjusting his visor's magnification. At first, he thought it might be one of the native crystal formations shifting in the wind. Then he realized it was crawling. His scanner picked up biological readings, definitely alien, definitely in distress. Corporate protocol was clear. Any unauthorized alien contact required immediate reporting to security. The Thylorians had their own settlements on the other side of the planet, and their exile customs were well documented. Interfering with their cultural practices violated several interspecies treaties. Marcus should mark the location, file a report, and let nature take its course. But as his scanner revealed more details, his resolve wavered. The larger biosignature was failing, dying. The smaller one, barely registering on his equipment, was even worse off. Marcus had studied alien biology during his engineering training. Those readings suggested a mother and infant, both in critical condition. He thought of his sister Sarah back on Earth and her newborn son, the way she had looked at little David, the fierce protective love in her eyes. How could any species, even aliens with their own customs, abandon a mother and child to die in this wasteland? Marcus made his decision. He activated his emergency beacon and started the long walk toward the dying aliens. Company protocol could wait. His humanity wouldn't let him walk away. Zara sensed the approaching figure before she saw him. The vibrations, through the crystal substrate beneath her, were wrong, different from Thylorian footsteps. When the shape finally materialized through her blurred vision, she almost didn't believe it. A human, fully suited in protective gear, carrying what looked like medical equipment. She tried to speak but only managed a rasping sound. The human knelt beside her, his scanner humming as it analyzed her condition. Through his visor, she could see a concerned face with dark eyes and worried features. He was young for a human, she thought. Perhaps 30 standard years. Easy there, the human said, his voice translated through his suit's communication system. I'm Marcus, I'm going to help you. Zara tried to pull Lyra closer to her chest, protective instincts overriding her failing strength. The human noticed and held up his hands in what she recognized as a peaceful gesture. The baby, he said gently. May I check on her? The fact that he asked, rather than simply taking, surprised Zara. In Thylorian society, males commanded and females obeyed. But this human sought her permission, even though she was clearly powerless to stop him. She managed a small nod. Marcus carefully examined Lyra with his scanner, his expression growing more concerned. The infant was severely dehydrated and showing signs of radiation poisoning. Her unusual crystal formations were actually absorbing and processing the harmful radiation, but the process was overwhelming her underdeveloped system. She's fighting, Marcus murmured, more to himself than to Zara. Look at these readings. Her crystals are trying to filter the radiation. I've never seen anything like it. He looked back at Zara, whose condition was equally critical. Her larger crystal formations were cracked and failing, no longer able to regulate her body temperature or filter toxins. She had perhaps hours left, maybe less. Marcus activated his emergency communicator. Base, this is Chen. I need immediate medical assistance at coordinates 774 Alpha. The response was immediate and sharp. Chen, you're not authorized to provide aid to unauthorized aliens. Return to base immediately. Marcus looked at the dying mother and child. Zara's eyes met his, and in them he saw not just desperation, but a fierce maternal love that transcended species barriers. She was asking him, with her final reserves of strength, to save her daughter. Negative, Base. I'm declaring a medical emergency under Section 12 of the Colonial Safety Protocols. These aliens pose no security threat and require immediate humanitarian aid. Chen, you're in violation of... Marcus switched off his communicator. He activated his suit's emergency medical protocols and began administering fluids to both mother and child. His portable shelter could provide temporary protection from the radiation, but they needed more advanced medical care. The mining facility had a small medical bay, but bringing aliens there would violate every protocol in the book. It would likely end his career and possibly result in criminal charges. But as he watched Lyra's tiny chest rise and fall with labored breathing, Marcus knew he had no choice. He carefully lifted the infant, supporting her head as his sister had taught him with her own baby. Lyra's unusual crystals hummed faintly against his gloved hands, warm and somehow familiar. Then he helped Zara to her feet, supporting most of her weight as they began the slow journey back to his vehicle. Why? Zara managed to whisper as they walked. Why help us? Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. Because someone needs to, he finally said. Because you're a mother protecting her child. Because it's the right thing to do. Zara had never heard such reasoning from a male before. In her society, actions were driven by genetic superiority, clan honor, or personal advancement. The concept of helping someone simply because they needed help was alien to her experience. As they reached Marcus's transport vehicle, alarms began sounding in the distance. The mining facility had detected the unauthorized alien biosignatures. Security forces would be dispatched soon. Marcus helped Zara and Lyra into the vehicle's protective compartment, then took the driver's seat. Hold on, he said. This is going to get complicated. As they drove toward the facility, Zara clutched her daughter close and watched the human who had risked everything for strangers. For the first time since Lyra's birth, she felt something she had thought lost forever. Hope. This human, this Marcus Chen, had shown her a different way of being. Perhaps her daughter's unusual gifts weren't a curse after all. Perhaps they were exactly what both their species needed. The transport vehicle raced across the crystalline wasteland, carrying three beings whose lives were about to change forever. Behind them, the twin suns continued their harsh dance across the alien sky. But ahead lay the promise of sanctuary, understanding, and maybe even redemption. Marcus gripped the steering controls tighter as the facility grew larger on the horizon. He had made his choice. Now he had to live with the consequences, whatever they might be. In the back seat, an alien mother held her dying child, and for the first time in days both were breathing freely. The real test was just beginning. The healing touch Marcus guided his transport vehicle through the facility's outer perimeter as alarms continued to blare across the compound. The security checkpoint ahead was abandoned, its automated systems flashing red warnings about unauthorized biological signatures. He knew the security team would be mobilizing, probably assuming some kind of alien attack or contamination breach. Taking a sharp turn, Marcus headed for Section 7, the facility's abandoned mining wing. 3 years ago, a cave-in had rendered those tunnels unprofitable, and corporate had simply sealed them off rather than pay for repairs. The section still had power and life support, but no security monitoring. It would buy him time to stabilize his patience. In the transport's rear compartment, Zara watched the human facility grow larger through the transparent panels. The geometric structures were harsh and utilitarian, compared to the flowing crystal architecture of her people, but they represented safety. Lyra stirred weakly in her arms, and Zara felt a flicker of hope. The child's breathing had improved slightly during the journey, though her crystal formations still glowed with an unhealthy inner light. Marcus parked the vehicle in the abandoned section's loading bay and quickly activated his portable scanner to check for security drones. The area was clear, but that wouldn't last long. He helped Zara and Lyra out of the transport, noting that the alien mother was stronger now that she was away from the direct radiation of the twin suns. "We need to get you both into a protected environment," Marcus explained as he led them through the facility's corridors. "The mining equipment here can be modified to create a medical treatment area." Zara followed, studying the human's movements. He moved with purpose and confidence, but she also noticed his hands trembling slightly. He was afraid, she realized. This act of compassion was costing him greatly, yet he continued forward without hesitation. The abandoned medical bay was small but functional. Marcus immediately began modifying a mineral analysis unit, recalibrating its sensors to monitor biological functions instead of crystal compositions. His engineering training had included emergency medical protocols for mining accidents, but treating alien physiology was entirely new territory. "I need to understand how your crystal systems work," Marcus said as he helped Zara onto an examination platform. "Your daughter's formations are processing radiation, but the process is overwhelming her system." Zara hesitated. Thylorian biology was considered sacred knowledge, not to be shared with outsiders. But as she looked at Lyra's pale face, traditional restrictions seemed less important than survival. "Our crystals filter and process energy," she explained slowly. "They regulate temperature, purify toxins, and store nutrients. Healthy crystals grow in geometric patterns that maximize efficiency. Lyra's crystals..." She paused, touching her daughter's rounded formations. "They're different, smoother. The elders said they were defective." Marcus studied the readings on his modified scanner. "They're not defective," he said with growing excitement. "They're evolved. Look at these efficiency ratings. Her crystals are processing radiation at twice the rate of typical formations. The problem isn't that they don't work. It's that they work too well for her current developmental stage." The revelation struck Zara like a physical blow. Her daughter hadn't been cursed with defective genetics. She had been blessed with evolutionary advancement. The Thylorian elders had been wrong. "But why is she dying?" Zara asked, her voice thick with emotion. Because she's trying to process more radiation than her infant system can handle, Marcus replied. In a normal environment, her crystals would make her incredibly healthy. But out there, with the twin suns and the mineral radiation from this planet, she's overloading. Marcus began working with focused intensity, modifying mining equipment to create a radiation-shielded environment around Lyra. He used thermal regulators designed for crystal processing to stabilize her body temperature and repurposed water, purifiers to create clean hydration for both mother and child. As he worked, Zara found herself studying this remarkable human. In her society, males dominated through strength and genetic superiority, but Marcus's power came from knowledge, creativity, and an endless determination to solve problems. He didn't simply accept that Lyra was dying. He refused to let it happen. Why do humans fight so hard for individual lives? Zara asked as Marcus adjusted another piece of equipment. My people focus on the strength of the group. The weak are allowed to die so the strong can flourish. Marcus paused in his work, considering the question. Because every life has potential, he said finally. Your daughter might hold the key to surviving in high radiation environments. If your people had let her live and develop, she might have helped your entire species adapt to harsh worlds like this one. And if she had remained weak, if she had contributed nothing, then she still would have deserved to live, Marcus replied without hesitation. Because she's a person, not a resource. Because her mother loves her. Because every being deserves a chance to find their own purpose. The concept was so alien to Zara's worldview that she struggled to comprehend it. Yet as she watched Marcus work tirelessly to save her daughter, she began to understand. This human fought for Lyra not because of what she might contribute, but simply because she existed. Hours passed as Marcus fine-tuned his improvised medical system. Slowly, Lyra's condition stabilized. Her crystal formation stopped glowing with that sickly light and began to pulse with healthy rhythm. Her breathing deepened, and for the first time since her birth, she opened her eyes and looked around with curiosity. Zara wept. In her culture, tears were considered weakness, but she couldn't stop them from flowing. Her daughter was alive, truly alive, and beginning to show the alert intelligence that healthy Thylorian infants possessed. She's going to be okay, Marcus said, exhaustion evident in his voice. The radiation shielding is working and her crystal formations are adapting. In a few days, they should be regulated enough that she can safely exist in normal environments. And what about after that? Zara asked. My people will never accept her return. They'll see her as cursed, no matter what you've discovered. Marcus was quiet for a moment, running calculations in his head. Then maybe she doesn't need to return to them. Maybe there are other options. Before Zara could ask what he meant, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor. Multiple pairs of boots moving with military precision. Marcus quickly activated his scanner and confirmed what he already suspected. Security forces were conducting a systematic search of the facility. Marcus Chen, a voice boomed through the communication system. You are in violation of Corporate Regulation 77 Alpha and Interspecies Treaty Gamma 4. Surrender the unauthorized aliens immediately. Marcus looked at Zara, who was clutching Lyra protectively to her chest. Fear had replaced the hope in her eyes. She expected him to surrender them now, to save himself and his career. Instead, Marcus walked to the communication panel and activated it. This is Engineer Chen. I'm providing humanitarian medical aid to refugees under Colonial Emergency Protocol 12. These aliens pose no threat and are under my protection. Chen, you're not authorized to invoke emergency protocols for unauthorized aliens. Stand down immediately. Negative, Marcus replied firmly. I'm declaring this section a temporary humanitarian zone. Any interference with medical treatment will be reported to Colonial Command as a violation of basic sentient rights. The silence that followed was telling. Corporate security could break down the doors and take Zara and Lyra by force, but doing so would create legal complications. Interspecies law was complex, and Marcus was cleverly using humanitarian statutes that existed to protect refugees. But Zara knew this was only a temporary reprieve. Eventually, corporate lawyers would find loopholes. Eventually, pressure would be brought to bear. And when that happened, Marcus would have to choose between his principles and his future. She watched the human checking and rechecking Lyra's medical readings, still working to ensure her daughter's complete recovery, even while facing professional ruin. In that moment, Zara made a decision that would change everything. "Marcus," she said quietly, "there's something else you should know about Lyra's crystal formations." He looked up from his monitoring equipment, seeing something new in Zara's expression. "Her crystals don't just process radiation," Zara continued. "They can synthesize compounds that don't exist naturally. Medicines, materials, energy sources. If she develops properly, she could produce substances that would revolutionize both our technologies." Marcus stared at the infant, who was now looking back at him with bright, intelligent eyes. "You're saying she's not just evolved for survival. She's evolved to be a living factory for advanced materials." Zara nodded. "The elders saw only defect and weakness, but you've helped me see what she truly is. A bridge between our species, a key to futures neither of us could achieve alone." Outside the sealed section, security forces were setting up more permanent positions. Soon the standoff would escalate, but for now, in this moment, 3 beings from 2 different species sat together in a makeshift medical facility, bonding over the miracle of a child who might change both their worlds. Marcus looked at his scanner readings one more time, then made another decision that would define the rest of his life. He began downloading all of Lyra's biological data and transmitting it directly to Colonial Command, bypassing corporate security entirely. If they were going to make a stand, he would make sure the entire galaxy understood what was at stake. This wasn't just about one human's compassion or one mother's love for her child. This was about the future of interspecies cooperation and the potential for 2 civilizations to grow stronger together. The healing had begun, but the real test was still to come. A new beginning. The tension in the abandoned medical bay was thick as encrypted transmissions crackled through Marcus's communication system. Colonial Command had received his data package about Lyra's unique abilities, and the response was immediate and intense. Scientists, diplomats, and military advisors were all weighing in on the implications of an evolutionary leap that could benefit multiple species. But the voices outside. The sealed section told a different story. Corporate security had been joined by Thylorian enforcement officers, their crystalline armor gleaming as they demanded the return of their contaminated outcasts. The legal situation was becoming a nightmare of competing jurisdictions and cultural laws. Zara sat holding Lyra, who was now alert and healthy thanks to Marcus's improvised medical system. The infant's unusual crystal formations pulsed with a soft, steady light that seemed almost musical in its rhythm. She was producing her first synthetic compounds, tiny amounts of purified nutrients that Marcus's scanners identified as substances unknown to either human or Thylorian science. "They're saying I stole property belonging to the Thylorian state," Marcus said, monitoring the legal arguments flowing through his communication channels. "And corporate is claiming I violated contamination protocols that put the entire facility at risk." "You didn't steal me," Zara said firmly, her voice stronger than it had been since the exile began. "I was cast away. According to our own laws, I ceased to exist the moment they threw me into the wasteland. How can someone steal what doesn't officially exist?" Marcus looked at her with new respect. The alien mother was not just surviving anymore. She was fighting back with intelligence and legal reasoning that impressed even him. "The problem is they're changing their laws as we speak," Marcus replied, checking another update. "The Thylorian Council is claiming that your daughter's abilities prove she was never truly defective. They want to reverse the exile and reclaim both of you." Zara's expression hardened. Now that they know Lyra might be valuable, they want her back. But what about the next mother whose child appears different? What about the others they've already condemned to die? Through the facility's external cameras, Marcus watched more ships arriving in the landing area. Human medical teams from Colonial Command were setting up research stations, eager to study Lyra's unique biology. Thylorian diplomatic vessels were deploying legal experts and cultural advisors. What had started as a simple act of compassion was becoming an interspecies incident with galaxy-wide implications. But the most concerning development was the arrival of the Thylorian enforcement ship carrying Zara's former mate, Koren. Marcus's scanners identified him as a high-ranking clan leader, whose political influence had grown since casting out his defective family. Now he was claiming parental rights and demanding immediate custody of both mother and child. "He's here," Zara whispered, her entire body tensing as she recognized the biosignature readings. "Koren. He wants Lyra now that she's proven valuable." "Over my dead body," Marcus said with quiet intensity. The comment surprised Zara. In her culture, such absolute statements were made only by clan leaders protecting their genetic legacy. But Marcus was a single human with no clan, no official authority, making this declaration to protect aliens who weren't even his species. A new voice crackled through the communication system, speaking with the authority of colonial command. "Engineer Chen, this is Admiral Sarah Torres. You've created quite a situation here." Marcus recognized the name. Torres was legendary in the colonial service, known for her diplomatic skills and her fierce protection of human values throughout the galaxy. "Admiral, I invoke the Human Sanctuary Protocol," Marcus said, using a legal framework he'd studied but never expected to need. "I formally declare this section of the facility as sovereign human territory and offer asylum to Zara Vex and her infant daughter Lyra." The silence that followed was profound. The Human Sanctuary Protocol was ancient, dating back to Earth's maritime traditions, but it had been incorporated into colonial law as a protection for refugees fleeing persecution. No one had ever used it to protect aliens from their own species. "Chen, that's unprecedented," Torres replied. "You're essentially declaring independence from both corporate and Thylorian authority." "Yes, ma'am. These beings are under human protection, now. And if the Thylorians demand their return? If they claim you're harboring their property?" Marcus looked at Zara, who was staring at him with an expression of amazement and growing hope. Then he looked at Lyra, whose crystal formations were beginning to produce more complex compounds, creating a soft rainbow of colors in the air around her. "Then they'll have to negotiate with the human government as equals," Marcus said. "Because we don't recognize the concept of sentient beings as property, and we don't abandon those who seek our protection." The response from outside was immediate and chaotic. Corporate security was demanding his arrest for sedition. Thylorian enforcement was claiming territorial violations, but human colonial marines were now taking positions around the sealed section, following orders from Admiral Torres to protect what had become an official diplomatic sanctuary. Hours passed in tense negotiation. Zara used the time to tell Marcus more about Thylorian society, explaining the rigid caste system that had condemned her and her daughter. She also shared knowledge about crystal biology that could revolutionize human technology, offering it freely as a gift between allies. Marcus shared stories of human history, explaining how their species had learned to value diversity and individual potential over genetic perfection. He told her about Earth's long struggle to overcome prejudice and create societies where everyone could contribute their unique gifts. "Your species failed sometimes," Zara observed, studying data about human conflicts and social evolution. "We failed a lot," Marcus admitted. "But we kept trying to do better. We learned that our greatest strength comes from including everyone, not excluding those who seem different." As they talked, Lyra continued to develop at an accelerated rate, her unique crystals producing compounds that Marcus's equipment could barely analyze. She was creating materials that could revolutionize medicine, engineering, and energy production. The infant who had been condemned as defective was proving to be one of the most scientifically valuable beings in known space. The breakthrough came when Admiral Torres arrived in person, accompanied by a full diplomatic team and a squad of colonial Marines. She studied the situation with experienced eyes, then made a proposal that surprised everyone. "The human government formally recognizes Zara Vex and Lyra Vex as political refugees under our protection," Torres announced. "We also propose the establishment of the first interspecies research cooperative, with the three of you as founding members." Koren's voice crackled angrily through the communication system. "You cannot steal our genetic heritage. The female and her offspring belong to our clan, Torres responded with calm authority. According to your own laws, you cast them out to die. They survived through human intervention and now choose human protection. We recognize their right to self-determination. The offspring has abilities that belong to our species. The offspring is a person, not property, Torres replied firmly. And her mother has chosen to share her knowledge freely with human science as an equal partner, not as a subordinate. The legal and diplomatic battles continued for days, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Human law was clear about refugee, rights and self-determination. Colonial Command backed Marcus's actions fully, recognizing the precedent he had set for protecting vulnerable beings regardless of species. More importantly, Lyra's continued development was proving the value of the path they had chosen. Her crystal formations were producing revolutionary compounds daily, advances that could benefit both humans and Thylorians. The defective child was becoming a bridge between civilizations. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the newly constructed interspecies research facility, watching Zara demonstrate crystal cultivation techniques to a mixed team of human and Thylorian scientists. The exile who had been left to die was now the facility's chief Thylorian researcher, her expertise valued and respected by colleagues from multiple species. Lyra, now a healthy and rapidly developing infant, spent her days in a specially designed nursery, where her unique biology was studied and celebrated rather than feared. Her crystal formations had stabilized into patterns that were both beautiful and incredibly functional, producing compounds that were already revolutionizing medical treatments across the galaxy. Any regrets? Admiral Torres asked Marcus as they watched the research teams work together. Marcus considered the question. He had been forced to resign from corporate employment, his engineering career essentially ended. He faced ongoing legal challenges from Thylorian traditionalists who still claimed he had committed theft. His comfortable, predictable life was gone forever. But as he watched Zara teaching human scientists about crystal biology, while Lyra created rainbow patterns of synthesized compounds in her nursery, Marcus felt only satisfaction. He had followed his conscience, protected those who needed protection, and helped create something unprecedented in galactic history. No regrets, he said finally. This is what we're supposed to do. This is what makes us human. Zara approached them, carrying Lyra, who reached toward Marcus with happy sounds. The infant's crystals sparkled as she recognized the human who had saved her life. The Research Council wants to establish colonies where interspecies families can develop new technologies together, Zara reported. Places where different biologies can complement each other instead of competing. Marcus took Lyra in his arms, marveling at how much she had grown. And what do you think about that? Zara smiled, an expression that had become more natural, as she learned to live without fear. I think my daughter will have opportunities I never dreamed possible, and I think the human who taught me that every life has value would be an excellent choice to help design those colonies. Looking down at Lyra, who was creating tiny crystal formations in his palm as gifts, Marcus knew that his decision in the wasteland had been the right one. He had chosen compassion over protocol, humanity over regulations, and the result was a new chapter in interspecies relations that would benefit countless beings across the galaxy. The abandoned hope had become a bridge to the future. And sometimes, Marcus reflected, that was exactly how the best changes began, with one person refusing to walk away from someone in need.